Welcome to Fuelcast, your go-to space for inspiring, engaging, and uplifting conversations, connecting those who want to make a difference in the lives of our children and communities. Together, we are fueling Georgia's future, one conversation at a time. It's now time for Fuelcast Georgia.
So welcome to another exciting episode of Fuelcast. I am your host, Rolandria Boyce.
And I'm your co-host, Anna Coleman, and we are so excited to be back in studio today with another exciting episode, talking all about farm to school, its impact, and how it can be connected to classrooms and the academic school day. So who do we have joining us today, Ro?
Yeah, we have two very exciting guests joining us today. The 2026 Teacher of the Year, Rachel Kinsall, and School Nutrition Director Jessica O'Leary of Effingham County. All right, so welcome to Fuelcast, Rachel and Jessica. So before we get started, I'd like to start our conversation with getting to know a little bit more about you, especially for our listeners. So tell me, Rachel, where did you grow up? And tell me, how did that influence your life and where you are today?
So I'm originally from Greene County, Georgia, and I grew up on a beef cattle farm. So I grew up in a rural area where agriculture was kind of a part of the everyday life, but we didn't really realize it as being something special and unique to our area. So that kind of led me to a path of animal science in college. I was an animal science major, and that has kind of shifted me into agricultural education.
That is very cool. We got to learn a little bit more about that. Jessica, what about you?
I'm originally from Maryland. However, I did grow up on a farm in Maryland and also in Southeast Georgia. So my family are not only farmers, but they also are crabbers. So when we weren't working on the farm, we were out on the boat, in the water, and most of our, everything that we ate growing up pretty much came from what we grew, what we harvested, and then what we caught as well. So I have a long history of agriculture as far as living it, not necessarily teaching it. And then in college, I did my bachelor's and master's in nutrition, and translate that to what I do at work each day.
Wow, you guys have very interesting stories. So Rachel and Jessica, you shared a lot about your upbringing and kind of where you are today. So I want to learn a little bit more about your respective roles and how that's influenced everything. So Jessica, I'll start with you. You're the school nutrition director. Tell us about what's your day-to-day look like in that role.
As a school nutrition director, each day is different, which is what I love about the job. You pretty much make it whatever you want it to be. So of course you have those days where it's just mainly paperwork and that kind of thing. But the majority of it and what makes it really fun is getting out and being with the students and your staff. So we do a lot of student testing as far as putting out new recipes and that kind of thing, following up with our managers and getting their feedback as well as student feedback about what's working, what's not working, how can we make it a little bit more efficient. So that way it's easier on the staff and we still put out a very good product. And then exposing our students to a lot of different flavor profiles. So this most recent National School Lunch Week was great for us in that it was a global theme. So we were able to introduce things like gyros and Cuban sandwiches and ramen and lasagna and things like that that we haven't previously offered before. And we got a lot of very positive feedback about that. So. And anytime we can incorporate local items, we do. And so we work with our local farmers and our local distributors and bring in items, local Georgia apples, that kind of thing. So which is harder for us in Southeast Georgia because they do all have to come from the north. And so you have to have a pretty large order to be able to get them to deliver them to you. But we work with our fellow directors as well to kind of combine so that way we can still get those products even though we're nowhere near where they are.
Yeah, so it sounds like collaboration is a strong force in your program.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So Rachel, what about you? So as an agricultural science teacher and teacher of the year, tell us about what does your day-to-day look like?
Well, kind of like Jessica said, I really love my job because no 2 days are the same. And really, I no 2 hours are the same because the courses that I teach are so vastly different. I teach an intro to ag science class, I teach a forest science class, a horticulture class, a floral design class. So even in a day, it looks very different hour by hour. We also have a livestock barn and we have a greenhouse. And so a lot of times my day is also dependent upon the season. And, much like a farmer, we have to get certain tasks done to maintain those facilities. And so that's what keeps it interesting, is trying to get the kids engaged in those tasks. and kind of seeing where their interest fit. That's what I love about agriculture, is it is so broad. So trying to give students lots of different opportunities to see which one sticks is where my passion lies.
Are there any that stand out in particular, you know, from a student perspective and their involvement in your program? Anything that stands out that you'd like to share?
Our newest livestock barn has been the biggest thing that kind of stands out to me as far as like engaging students and meeting them where they are. So we built the barn as a way for students who live in more suburban areas, maybe they live in a subdivision or they live in town and they don't have a place to keep livestock, they can keep their animals at our school barn. And so right now we have a student who lives in downtown Madison, and she's getting an opportunity to participate in raising an animal that she wouldn't have gotten had this barn not been available to her. So we're going through the whole process of raising animals that will be sent into the food chain too. So teaching them how to responsibly raise their animals. You know, we have a lot of demand in the county to sponsor these animals because the community wants to support our students and they want locally raised meat. So it's been a nice connection too, so the kids are getting to see the process and then the community gets to reap the benefits from it too.
Yeah, truly, with both of your responses, collaboration helps amplify the power of any kind of program or initiative. So I see that in both of you all's actions on your day-to-day. So I'm excited to get into the main focus of this episode, which is Farm to School. So Jessica, for our listeners who may not be aware, what does the term Farm to School mean to you?
For me, the term farm to school means making that connection from our agriculture or where our food comes from to actually serving it in the cafeterias. We are fortunate that you know, we do have those partnerships where we are able to get those local products either from right within our county or surrounding counties or state, and be able to bring those in. And you know, that was a lot of work as far as actually meeting with the farmers, explaining what our definition of farm to school is, especially for a school district that's my size. You know, we're considered a medium school district, and a lot of farmers tend to shy away from that because if they're a small scale farm, they're like, oh, I can't, you know, supply a school district like that. And I'm like, hey, you know, even if you can just give us a small amount, it may only be enough for one school, but that's still farm to school for us. We're still exposing that school to your products. And so having those conversations one-on-one with the farmers and putting them at ease of, I'm still going to be able to supply my school system through my broadline distributors, but we also want to incorporate your local products as well. So getting them comfortable with being able to sell to me in the first place, and then it kind of spreads from there. So I would go to community meetings. Like we had the coastal organic growers in our area, and so I would go to their monthly meetings and meet with a bunch of them all at one time and say, okay, you know, what products can you give me? What products can you give me? And then working with our fellow directors as well. The great thing about school nutrition is no one gatekeeps and everyone shares.
Everyone.
And so we would put together a Google form, and so that way everybody in our area would say, hey, if you're looking for this item, here's the farmer, here's their contact info, and this is the items that they have available. And so we could all use that resource, and every time you had a new one, you would add it to the list. And you know, that's how we're able to get larger orders together for those farmers that may be further away. And then you know, you don't necessarily have to have a huge order for those that are closer to you. So really collaboration, working with your fellow people, and then really putting yourself out there and meeting the farmers directly.
Yes.
Delivery is usually an issue, especially with our smaller farms. So, you know, we have a box truck. So, hey, I'm going to drive up to your farm with our box truck, and then I'll deliver it myself if I have to. I would rather put in a little bit more work to get a better product than just say, you know, we can't make this work.
Yes. Wonderful examples of community engagement and finding ways to make things happen. I do love the Google form example. So I think that's an opportunity to help expand your reach even more, again, connecting to collaboration.
When Jessica mentioned like small scale growers being intimidated by the cafeteria, yeah, like I think she was talking to my core there, because yeah, like that's my intimidation too. Like as an ag teacher, you know, trying to work with our school nutrition department, like how can I in a garden at school produce enough to supply the lunchroom. You know, so I can't. But what I can do is we work with our culinary. We have a culinary class.
Wonderful.
And so producing things in our garden that the culinary class can use is the way that we kind of contribute to the farm to school effort too, in another sense. We've processed chickens that the culinary class has used before, grown leafy greens, or even tomatoes in the summer, but it's just enough for our culinary class. So I just thought it was interesting when you said that about small farmers, because I was like, I feel that that same stress of I don't know if I can do enough.
But you amplified another point. Sometimes the ability to have an uncomfortable or difficult conversation can bridge gaps and ultimately amplify the goal. So I think your ability to even think outside the box and want to have a conversation that might not necessarily be comfortable, it still allowed you to be able to serve your students and the district ultimately.
And one of the things that we do as well, speaking of like the smaller like school gardens, is some of the teachers that are active in the school gardens, they'll reach out and say, hey, we've got this product that we're going to be harvesting. You know, what can we do with that? And I'll come in and we'll do cooking in the classroom with the students with the items that they actually grew. And then we'll also do lessons and things. So as they're planting them, like we may do a square foot garden, and they have to read the seed packets and then determine the spacing of the seeds and draw it out on the paper and then put it into the milk crates and mark out where the seeds need to go. And so there's the math components and the reading components. And so we try to incorporate all the different lessons into it. So it's not just necessarily the planting and the eating and all that. It's, you know, we work in all the other subjects as well.
Yeah.
And especially my ag teachers, you know, they'll reach out to me every year and say, hey, when are we going to do cooking in the classroom? And so, you know, we always do an educational component to it, and then we do the actual cooking with them. And sometimes it's stuff that they grew, and then sometimes it's stuff that we bring in, you know, to reinforce that lesson.
It seems like everyone is bought into the process holistically and making sure everyone is involved and engaged, and you definitely provided an example of food-based learning, which is a major facet of our program. So Jessica, tell me a little bit about the Honey Ridge Agri-Center.
Honey Ridge Agri-Center is unique for us in that we are very fortunate to have the 325-acre farm. It came to be from Mr. Sam Zamuri, who owned the property prior to us. And he did not have children, but he was very active in 4-H and FFA. And when he was going to be retiring from farm life, he decided he was going to donate all of his cattle to us. Well, pretty much like you, it was a lot of our students didn't have anywhere to keep the cattle, to raise and show and that kind of thing. And so the school district began looking for properties that they could purchase to be able to house these animals. And through collaboration and partnership with Mr. Zamuri, he decided to sell the farm to us for below fair market value to not only help further, you know, agriculture in the school district, but he also didn't want it turned into like housing development and that kind of thing. So the farm stayed intact, and he sold it with everything on the farm. So all of the equipment, the houses, the buildings, the furniture, all the animals. So everything came turnkey essentially. And since 2016, our students have been actively working on the farm since then. And so we have the SAE barn where all the students can house their animals if they don't have, you know, places at their own homes to do so. And it just opens that agriculture and ability for students who wouldn't necessarily have that option to be able to participate in that.
Yeah, I can't imagine the impact that having access to that type of resource is having for the children and what it's fostering in them. Appreciation for the food, seed to plate. I can only imagine the kids are benefiting significantly. So Rachel, as an agriculture science teacher, why do you think it is important for students to understand where their food comes from and what careers exist in the agricultural industry?
I think it's important for kids to understand where their food comes from because we are very fortunate in America to have a lot of different options when it comes to the grocery store. You can choose to buy organic or all natural or conventional food, and it's important that they're informed consumers and that they can make that choice on their own, and they understand, and they're not afraid of our food source. They understand that we have a safe food source. So I think about it from the edge of like, as an adult, as a consumer of our groceries, that the students really need to be informed consumers. And that's why I think that agricultural education and food nutrition education is so important, just to inform them as consumers.
Rachel, so you mentioned the connections to ensuring that students become smart consumers. Jessica, for you, how does that translate to school nutrition?
So one of the things that we do at Honey Ridge is we have a farm-to-table garden. And so we do first grade field trips every year. So all of the first graders in our school district will come out to Honey Ridge, and they'll go through several different stations on the farm that teach them all different types of things that go on in agriculture. So not just plant-based, but animal-based, ag mechanics, bees, all sorts of things. And so one of the stations is our farm-to-table station, where they come in and they actually plant our garden. And so each school will plant a different item, and it's always a winter crop, just because that's when it's easiest for us to harvest. And so they'll come in and they'll plant that, and then we actually try, once we harvest the item, we try to serve it back at the school that actually planted it. And we kind of make a big deal about it, and so if it's enough that we'll serve the whole school, then we will. If not, then we'll just kind of reserve it for that first grade class. So as they come in, we're like, hey, this is the collard greens that you planted on your field trip. And so maybe they wouldn't have tried the collard greens before, but it gets them a little bit more excited to try it this time because they actually had a hand in growing it.
Yes.
And then that way it brings back that connection of, we planted this, it grew, we harvested it, now we're being able to eat it. And it just kind of makes them a little bit more aware of where their food comes from, and it makes them a little bit more adventurous as well to try things that they maybe wouldn't try before.
Absolutely, and I love the point, Jessica, you made about starting early. Like, we're trying to influence long-term eating habits. So if we start early, create interest around it, make it exciting, spark that curiosity in students, no telling how, long range, ultimately it could shift a child's eating habits and shift the health of our nation, ultimately. So back to you, Rachel. So the Georgia Department of Education Student Bill of Rights states that Georgia students have the right to Georgia-grown school meals along with Georgia-grown academic standards. What role do farm-to-school and agriculture education play in achieving those goals?
I think the role that agricultural education and farm-to-school play in kind of bridging that gap and letting students have locally grown food is just, one, making connections with local farmers. I think it's vitally important that students are aware of what's available to them in the community. And they get to go out. We do lots of field trips where students get to be a part of a farm and get to see what's happening on the farm. And then to be able to bring that in, partnering with the school nutrition program, to bring that into the classroom or into the lunchroom is vitally important. So I think agricultural education helps kind of bridge those gaps. We're teaching students about production. 2% of Americans are actually in production ag. So, I think about my classroom, and I might have one or two of those kids that are going into production. But if I can be a part of that in growing future farmers, to then be able to produce local products to give back into their school systems, I think that's the real value in ag education. We really pride ourselves on the learning by doing portion, in the hands-on portion of agricultural education. So I think about irrigation has always been one of those things that was a little intimidating for me. And we took it on this year and realized, it's not so bad. And teaching, irrigation is a huge part of your garden or your crop, or and to just kind of break down barriers like that and make it not as intimidating, so that, when students go to do, even if it is a backyard garden, if they can, they've worked with us to install an irrigation system, so they'll know how to do it in their garden. And because I tell everybody, I was like, if you got the timers, you got the irrigation going, it makes life a lot easier. So anything that we can do to help encourage them or give them knowledge that they can take back and apply is what we're aiming for.
Yeah, application is key. So we understand that as you are exploring the state as the Teacher of the Year, congratulations, you're also visiting local farms and seeing the people behind the crops. So how does the Harvest of the Month initiative give Georgia schools and teachers an opportunity to celebrate Georgia agriculture?
I really love that Harvest of the Month is focusing on these local farmers and really trying to help emphasize too that there's a face behind the product. You know, I think so many of our students go into the grocery store and there's just food there, and there's that lack of connection of where it came from, and that it's a real person. And even larger farms are family farms. So I think Harvest of the Month has been very helpful with that, especially the video series that's come out to show that this product was made by a real person.
Yes.
And the family behind that. So that's where I think the value of Harvest of the Month comes, is just being able to make that personal connection of where the crop is coming from.
Yeah, integrating that story, it makes it human, it makes it relevant. These aren't just random people, these are humans that are contributing to your community. So I appreciate that. Jessica, back to you. So what kind of school meal menu items do you serve utilizing Harvest of the Month from farm to school?
So we pretty much all of them, especially when it comes to our Harvest of the Month. We try to menu a local item once a week with our Harvest of the Month items. So with like November coming up, we work with a family farm, and it's a small scale farm for sweet potatoes. And so we're actually putting in our orders now, and they will deliver our sweet potatoes all throughout the month of November. And kind of like putting the face to the name there. You know, when we first started working with them, it's, you know, the mom and her little children would come and deliver the items, and they're in their van, and, you know, the kids are getting involved with bringing it in and stuff. And, you know, we always like to try and take pictures with them and put it on our social media and that sort of thing, to not only kind of give a shout out to that local farm, but to, again, put a face to a name. And these are real people and real families that are in our area that are growing and harvesting and, you know, providing to our school district. And so that way it, you know, further makes that connection of, it's not just some big corporation somewhere, a massive farm that's, you know, has all this big, you know, machinery and stuff. It's, you know, people out there, you know, using their hands and hand tools and, you know, doing the best they can with what they have. And so, you know, not only do we like to support, you know, small businesses, but, you know, we like to support local businesses. Yeah. And, you know, we have our seasonal items as well, as far as like satsumas and those kind of things that, you know, we may only get one time a year. But again, they're coming from right down the street. And, you know, so we try to get those local items and feature them on our menu at least once a week. That will fit, you know, into the items that we're already serving. And then we also highlight them in a different color. So that way they know, like, this is our Harvest of the Month item, and we give a little nutritional breakdown for it on our menus as well. So that way you get that kind of educational component to it, and then highlighting that item on the menu, so that way parents and students know, like, hey, this is a local item.
Right. You're weaving in that food-based learning every opportunity you get. So I think that just help the messaging stick with the students and creates even more curiosity and interest.
And one of the things that we also do is, kind of going back to the food-based learning, is we do fun fact cards for all of the Harvest of the Month items. And they will display them on the serving lines. And they're geared towards each grade group, so whether it's high school, middle school, or elementary school. And so it's just fun little facts that, you know, hey, this is, you know, what this is. And I think there's something with sweet potatoes were used in like the glue for stamps and that kind of thing at one point. So it's just those little random things. So one, you know, educate the students, two, make it fun, and three, to reinforce again what the Harvest of the Month item is.
Absolutely, and it brings a level of relevance too. I can imagine what the conversations are at home with parents.
Well, that's what I was just
Did
thinking,
you know?
like, I think that's a great conversation starter, just to get, you know, the conversation started about food in your lunchroom. The kids are going to read that and be like, what?
I know. It reminds me of old school Laffy Taffies, you know, the jokes that were on the back. But it offered an opportunity to start conversations. So it seems like you guys are on it in Effingham County. So yeah, back to my other question, what is the student feedback surrounding some of those menu items?
We usually get pretty decent student feedback. You know, you get those that were like, that wasn't really my favorite. But then others are like, You know, I wasn't really going to try it, but the cafeteria person said I should try it, so I did, and it's not that bad, or they really enjoyed it. And one of the things, you know, like with our sweet potatoes, like we do everything from just a baked sweet potato. We do, you know, our whipped sweet potatoes. We do sweet potato souffle. You got to put the marshmallows on there.
You have to.
You know. And then, you know, with our other items, we try to do a different recipe each week with it. So it's not just being presented in the same way. So presenting that item multiple times in different ways will hopefully get those students to try it at least once.
Yeah.
Getting students to eat vegetables in general is not the easiest thing. But especially as our students are getting a little bit older, our 4th and 5th grade students, our middle school and our high school students are actually a lot more likely to try them. You know, it's still a struggle with our pre-Ks and kinders. They tend to cry sometimes. But, you know, we are exposing them to it, and hopefully after like the 6th or 7th time, they'll actually try it.
Yeah, we don't give up. We
No.
just keep trying.
So I have a 2nd grader, and it really has been amazing to me to see his palate grow from eating in the lunchroom every day. And I think it's because there are all these options for him, you know, different things, and that's what he's going to eat.
Yeah.
If he's hungry, he's going to eat in the lunchroom, and it really has helped expand what he'll eat at home. So I really appreciate all of the integration of vegetables into the school nutrition program and how that's helped my personal child kind of play out his palate more.
Absolutely. Sometimes when children are in the presence of their peers, they may be more apt to try something that they wouldn't with their parents. It's like, gross for a parent, but if my friends are eating it, I'll tear it up. We often talk about how the cafeteria is somewhat of a space for that positive behavior intervention. So it's not just a space to dine, it's a space of community. So to your point, children are influenced by their peers, or they're influenced because you're consistently offering options, and we're not giving up. We're going to keep presenting these to you in fun and intriguing ways. So
A funny personal story, kind of along the lines of your son there. We serve baked chicken, a bone-in baked chicken, and I've been doing that since I've been there. And I asked my son when he was, you know, maybe 1st, 2nd grade, I was like, hey, you know, how did you like the chicken today? And he's like, Mama, that chicken had bones in it. And he was appalled that chicken had bones. And I was like, if my own child doesn't understand that chickens have bones, how many other kids don't understand? And I was like, that's something I will never take off my menu, because children of all ages need to understand that chicken comes in other forms other than strips and nuggets.
exactly.
So,
So it's that learning space too, back to the food-based learning piece. And we think that everyone knows, but they may not. So that created an opportunity for you to educate the littles.
yep.
So I'm going to stick with you, Jessica. So as we know, farm to school consists of more than just school gardens. Effingham County is a fairly large district with 16 schools and over 14,000 students. Serving that many students requires a tremendous volume of food. So how do you work with local farmers and producers to procure additional Georgia-grown products to supplement the yield for the school farm?
So not only, you know, do we work with our local farmers, and like I said, you know, we have to get them comfortable with the fact that we're not expecting you to be able to supply for our whole district. And then, you know, we go through our procurement processes to make sure that, you know, we're able to supplement the items that they can't necessarily do. So maybe I can get local peppers from you, but it's only enough to do a couple schools. I'm still going to be serving peppers in my other schools, just from my broadline produce distributor. And when it comes to our meat products and things, you know, we look for those that are Georgia grown. So we work with like Gold Creek Foods, which is a Georgia grown product. And then we work with our local producers as well, such as like Hunter Cattle Company, that we bring in their local sausage, and we serve that every time that we have sausage. So while I can't necessarily supplement every item as a Georgia grown item, we certainly try to do the most that we can.
Yes.
That's feasible monetarily.
So we read that you were instrumental in the fundraising efforts for the Morgan County Agricultural Learning Lab. a state-of-the-art agricultural barn campus where students raise livestock and deepen their agricultural knowledge through experiential livestock education. So how do the experiences provided to students in the agricultural learning lab impact their overall nutrition education and food choice?
I think the cool thing about our learning lab is the fact that the students are a part of the feeding and caring for the animals, and so they know that they're responsibly raised. It's responsibly raised pork. Right now we just have pigs in our barn. We could host sheep or lambs, but I think they're just seeing that this animal lived a great life and is going on to serve its other purpose. So I think that's a big portion of like they're feeling some responsibility for the product that they're producing. Our mall, we like to laugh because we have a mall in our small rural county now. It's really a livestock barn. But that was a huge push from the community too. And so that fundraising effort, you know, we were able to raise over $1 million from the community because the community saw the relevance and what we were trying to do, and started backing it. We got match grants to go along with it, but it really kind of seemed like once we got a little bit of the money, everybody else wanted to be a part of it too, because the community saw the importance of making sure that our students understood where their food comes from too.
That's that influence. Before influencers became popular on social media, we had true community influencers, and you've provided examples of that. So as Georgia Teacher of the Year, what advice do you have for other teachers listening who want to start incorporating more farm to school and agricultural lessons in their classroom?
I think the biggest thing is to start small, because you know you hear these places who are doing really awesome things, like with Effingham County's farm, but it didn't start as a big farm. It started as a small garden at different schools, and then to not be afraid to fail is the big thing, especially with a garden. Just give it a try, because the failing will bring about as much learning as the success is going to bring about.
Absolutely.
So I think people get overwhelmed with the idea of having one more thing to take on, but just not being afraid to fail, learning from your mistakes and starting small, I think is the most important thing for teachers to think about, and not be scared to step off and give it a try.
Wonderful advice. We talk a lot in our leadership team about doing 1% more. So sometimes it's not eating the entire elephant at once. Just take those small bites. Incremental steps forward will ultimately yield magnitude. So Jessica, I'm coming back to you. So we want to give you a chance to speak directly to Georgia students or parents who may be listening to this interview. Do you have anything you want to say to them, or why should a parent make school meals a part of their child's school day?
I think parents should encourage their students to participate in school meals. One, because we are offering a large variety of items, things that maybe you aren't serving at home that we can expose your students to. But also, they're nutritious, they're healthy. We put a lot of work and effort into making them what students actually want. So, at least in my district, every day we serve a minimum of 2 vegetables, a minimum of 2 fruits, often 3 and 4. And we really focus on fresh whole fruits. So it's not just pre-processed canned items, it's fresh from the farms, fresh from our distributors, and we give our students a lot of options. So maybe you're not necessarily wanting to get what our main dish item is that day. We still offer those comfort items like your classic peanut butter and jellies, but then we also offer daily salads and that sort of thing. So that way we have a variety that, I don't think there's one student that won't find anything that they don't want. 2, it also, it helps our programs as far as being able to continue to offer these items and offer better quality items. Because that's one of the things that in our procurement process we really look for is those quality items. So again, it's, most of our districts in Georgia are offering those quality items. Most of us are offering a whole muscle item and that kind of thing. And often that's, better quality than what some, students are eating on a daily basis, especially those that don't have parents that cook or that kind of thing. So, we really focus on scratch cooking and speed scratch. So like when we serve our chicken noodle soup, it is a homemade chicken noodle soup. It's not something just poured out of a can. We cook our vegetables, we cook our pasta, we combine everything together. When we do our spaghetti or our tacos or any of that, we use raw ground beef, and we season it and cook it from its raw state into its cooked state, instead of using a pre-made, already cooked, heat and serve type items. And I think a lot of parents just kind of have that initial connotation that everything is pre-done and it's all just heat and serve, and that's not really the reality anymore. It may have been at one point, but given all of our rules and regulations, it's a lot easier for us to cook from scratch and flavor it the way that we want to be able to meet those regulations and still offer very high quality products to the students.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the amazing things that are coming out of the lunchrooms is I eat in the lunchroom every single day. And when I found out I was teacher of the year and I wasn't going to be at my school every day, that was like one of my first thoughts was, how am I going to feed myself? I've gotten so used to just being able to walk over to the lunchroom and grab some lunch. And I feel like that says a lot about the quality of our food. I could pack my own lunch every day, but I choose not to. So I'm a huge proponent of the school lunch program.
Yeah, a true testament to the service of quality school meals. So Jessica.
And I have to say that at least in our district, we have a lot of community support, and not only just community, but from our local school board, our superintendent. So it really is a top-down support system. And when I first came on and started, revamping our menus and adding in local products and all of those kind of things, my board members said to me, we would rather you go broke and us have to fund you than us go back to the way things were. And so, we really have that buy-in from our school board, our administration, our teachers, our parents, our community members. Because our farm, while it is very much student-centered, and we do so many things out there from, like I said, ag mechanics to beekeeping to they're growing citrus groves and that kind of thing. But we also use it for community events as well. So that way our community stays in the know of what is happening out there too. So we do fall festivals, spring flings, rodeos, different things. And so that way we really kind of bring everybody into it and say, we are an agricultural, based community, and we want you to see it and be able to experience it. And so the farm, while it is owned by the school district, is open to everybody.
Yeah. So you both have shared such wonderfully insightful information. So I'm just curious, what's next for you as Teacher of the Year?
Well, I am excited. I'm really enjoying my year going around and seeing lots of different really awesome things that are happening in the state. But I'm excited to get back to Morgan County. I have got some ideas that I'd like to do to produce kind of niche items that I think would fit with the timeline of the school year. Like, I'd really like to put some muscadine vines in. Muscadines are something that come off in the fall, so that would be an easy product for us to harvest and use. And I also really want to do mushrooms. So mushrooms is on my list. It's kind of been an issue of where to put them, but I think we have the perfect spot. We've got shade, we've got water, and I'm definitely going to be putting some mushrooms in. So
Awesome, Rachel. Jessica, what about you?
For us, it's always menu innovation. So we are constantly looking at new recipes, coming up with new recipes. How can we introduce a new item in a new way? I like to call it my Taco Bell effect, where I take the same 5 items and rearrange them in different ways, and it's a brand new item. So how can we use what we already have and elevate it? So we're not necessarily bringing in a ton of new products, but we're taking what we have and making it better, making it new, making it exciting. And like I said, constantly getting that student feedback of, oh, maybe the spice didn't really work in that, or it would have been great if we didn't have this on it. While we like to put the lettuce and things on it to make it look pretty, a lot of our kids just tear it off anyway. So we're learning, okay, that's not really a time saver for us. We'll just serve it on the side, and that way those that wouldn't pick it up before because it had it on there will take it now and just not pick up the lettuce. So it's always a learning aspect to it of what's working, what's not working, and then how can we continue to build on that?
Yeah. You guys shared so much valuable information, and we are so grateful to have spoken with you all today. Thanks for your commitment to collaboration and partnership and that critically important element of food-based learning, where we're ensuring that children understand where their food is coming from, connecting the stories to their food. We thank you guys for joining us today. It was a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Want to learn more about school meals in Georgia? Here are 4 easy ways to stay in the know. Learn what's on the menu in your student's school. Follow your local school nutrition team on their social media accounts. Go eat a meal with your student in their school cafeteria. And as always, connect with us, the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division, to know what's going on statewide. You can connect with us via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn with the hashtag FuelingGA. You can also email us at fuelingga@godot.org. Until next time, the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division is fueling Georgia's future with excellence, one quality school meal at a time.
Thanks for joining us on Fuelcast Georgia. Want more of Georgia School Nutrition? Connect with us on social media using hashtag FuelingGA and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're here every month with new engaging guests and inspiring stories. Have questions or ideas for future topics? Email us at fuelingga@godot.org. Until next time, the Georgia Department of Education School Nutrition Division is fueling Georgia's future with excellence, one school meal at a time.